Hello, I'm Richard Weil, and I'm here to talk about the Liogier rasps. In particular, this one here, which is part of the Canadian Woodnet group send around test that it's been all the way across the country. Started out in Calgary. A few friends out there have tried it out, and now on the east coast of Canada, it's ready for its test in Nova Scotia. So this is a Liogier cabinetmakers rasp. So it has a relatively smooth round over and a flat back. This one is ground to a stitching of a 9, which is somewhat coarse, but not as coarse as others, but certainly not smooth either. So it's really meant for removing material and roughing out different shapes and that sort of thing. So first thing is the rasp is, the blade itself is about 10.5 inches long, and overall it's about 15.5 inches long. So it's a hefty tool, and it's meant for some aggressive wood removal. First thing is, it comes in this really nice case. All of the rasps from Knoll come that way, and you can see that this probably provides a really good way to protect the tool in a toolbox or in some other in a drawer or other things that you might want to protect the edge for. So out of the case, it's pretty straightforward. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples of doing some shaping with this rasp, and then we'll come back and maybe talk about some of the other Liogier rasps that I have. Okay, I'm going to use the cabinetmaker's rasp to do a round over on this piece of oak that I've got here. So I'm just going to draw a few little lines here to give me some reference for where I'm going to put the round over. So we'll just use that as a guide to make it consistent. So this is the number 9. I like to route a sort of a flat in the middle, split the difference. So we'll just get that flat done. As you can see, this makes short work of this very hard oak. So there, I've got that flat along there that gives me a sort of a reference. And so now I'm just going to put a flat between that edge and the line that I've got. And as quick as that, I've got a reasonable round over here that's, if I feel along, it's pretty close to the shape that you might get from a rotor bit or some other edge treatment that you'd have. Now, that's a little bit rough, so I can go over it with my the Liogier rasp, which is 11 on this side, and coming from the 9, I'll probably go right to the 13 to give me a reasonably smooth surface here on the roundover. Now, the thing with trying to get a smooth surface is really how you attack the wood with the rasp. It cuts a specific way, and this kind of motion here, pushing away from you with this, of course, right-handed rasp, is going to give you a reasonably smooth surface. But what I find is if I come across with a bit more angle, I can get surface smoother than this 13 stitching would normally give. So it's really something that you want to play with, because you can make different things happen. And of course, it's really a matter of which way the grain is running. Of course, with this, I've got end grain run out all along here, which is always a challenge. So at least with this, it allows you to sort of control what the shape you're after is going to be. So then you're at a point where you've got something you can sand. And this is just a 180. But I don't really need to start at an 80 and go to a 120 and work my way up. But I've got a pretty smooth round over on this piece right here. I can tune that up a bit there to give me a smoothness. A little bit of sandpaper. And a beautiful round over on this very hard piece of oak that took me maybe a couple of minutes. Okay, we have here a size 5 guitar neck, a Turs type guitar. I'm just going to round over this this square edge here using both the cabinet maker's rasp and the modeler's handle maker's rasp. So we'll give that a try. So the handle maker's rasp is really nice to clean out the inside concave. Okay, we're back. Now that you've seen a couple of examples of rounding over, shaping with the cabinet maker's rasp, I want to take a second to talk about a few other of the rasps that I have from Liogier. Each rasp has a different shape, has a different purpose, different stitching. There's a couple of gaps here that I'd like to try to fill more on the fine end, but just talk about what I have here now. This is the most coarse rasp that I have, and it's a stitching of 8. It's got a more aggressive round over on the back. It's really for some aggressive shaping, so in the case of the guitar neck, this would probably be the tool that I would use. I was doing a review of this one, so we used that one at the time. But this is probably the one to remove the most material the fastest. Now, you can get them in much more aggressive stitching patterns. However, it's what you want to do with the product and what the finished surface is going to look like. Of course, the more aggressive the stitching or the lower the number, the more work you're going to have to do to clean up your rasping activity. So for me, it's more about, I'd rather take a little longer and have less time cleaning up after the fact or moving through progressive finer stitching to get a smoother surface. So this is the compromise for me, but this is sort of my go-to rasp for removing a lot of material when I need to start out. It's about the same size as the cabinet maker's rasp that's on the send around test. and it's just got a bit of a different rounding on the profile. This is much better for removing material in corners with this very aggressive edge as compared to the smoother round over that the cabinet maker rasp has. A new rasp that Noel's come out with is the Liogier's rasps. You saw it a second ago on one of my demos. This particular one is a two-sided, and I've ordered it with an 11 and a 13 stitching. So the 13 stitching is a little finer, and I can almost get a surface that's ready for 150 or 180 sanding with the 13. It's also handy to have one of the cleaning brushes. Now this is a brass brush because a steel or a wire brush is going to damage the stitching, but it's very good for cleaning material out of the stitching on the rasps, and makes them a lot easier to use when they're not gummed up with material. And if you're using kind of an oily wood, you need to do this fairly often to keep the cutting edges clean and ready to go. So this Liogier rasp is nice for, well, obviously flat surfaces, for smoothing off the end grain or getting yourself a nice flat surface, because it gives you a good registration. But also it's good, as you saw in my demo, for smoothing over roundovers, and it provides a nice level of control that you don't get with the rounded rasp. So that's the Liogier rasp. I have one other flat rasp from Liogier. This is a 9 and an 11. So it's a bit more aggressive than the Liogier rasp, and it's obviously for removing more material with the 9, and it can make some sawdust fairly quickly just from running this over really any surface. So you want to use this in the right way, and always pay attention to what stitching you're using. You don't want to be trying to smooth something out and accidentally use the number 9 side, but it's pretty aggressive and removes an awful lot of material. The other two I have here are some smaller rasps. This is the Handlemaker rasp, which is a new rasp from Liogier, and this is a 12 stitching, and you saw me use that on the inside of this guitar neck here, where it works very well. It's also an excellent tool for shaping inside curves. It's called Handlemaker's rasp, so it could be used for the inside of a handle for a plain tote or some other inside curve that you need to shape, and it becomes fairly aggressive with a bit of pressure, but at a 12 stitching it's only it's going to leave a fairly smooth surface, so you don't have a whole lot of cleanup after you're done with this tool. And if you work on your technique in terms of twisting it so that it gives you a much smoother surface, so you can play with that and find out that you'll be able to get varying results with a different kind of hand motion when you're working this rasp. The last one I have is a small modeler's rasp. This is a 15, and it is very, very smooth. Has some flex to it, so it lets you get into various areas that you can't get into with something else, but it's also rounded on the back, and this 15 stitching virtually gives you a sanded surface. So when you're done with this, you're almost ready for finish sanding, not shaping sanding. So it's a very different tool, and at this size you can only use it for smaller surfaces and that sort of thing, or really fine detail work, but nothing comes close to this capability. And if you ever try to get a piece of sandpaper into a small opening or in between two pieces of wood, you know how hard sometimes it is to get the force exactly where you want to. With this, you can just put the edge in, and it'll allow you to put exactly the amount of force when you're trying to clean a groove out or clean a surface off with this level of smoothness. So I've taken a bit of time to show you the Liogier rasps that I have here in my shop. I have other rasps that these are the finest ones that I've used. They provide a great degree of control over machine or a rotary rasp or some of those power tools. And when you're looking at fine shaping, it's the way to go. I highly recommend any shop having a few of these rasps on hand and take a little bit of time to practice with them, and I think you'll find you get a level of control over your craftsmanship that you didn't have before or you don't get with power tools. So thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you next time.